Welcome back to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. All right, we've been talking about we were talking about lifestyle, right? We're talking about how to make sure you can attain and maintain your standard of living and quality of life in retirement. I shared with you that report from Morningstar about how things are changing with regard to your investment portfolio, how it's going to be more difficult to draw down the money. Well, that's the old rules, okay? There are strategies that can be employed. There are things that you can blend in fact, like indexes that have a negative correlation to the market. And one of those that I utilize quite frequently, the JP Morgan Mosaic, one of the beauties of this, when we look at the last two bear markets we had, 2000 through 2002 as an example, when the market dropped like 45, 46%, something like that, the S&P 500 index. Keep in mind, by the way, the S&P 500 index, this is another, when you're in your 20s and 30s, if you just starting out and you're thinking, where do I put my money? And maybe you don't have enough to get into a lot of funds, just an S&P 500 index fund is a great way to go, all right? Average return there is going to outperform most equity mutual funds. And yes, you're going to have some volatilities, but if you're younger and you've got 20, 30, 40 years to go, you can ride that out as you build up your money. Then as you build up your portfolio, we can add other asset categories in there that'll help smooth out the volatility and still give you that desired rate of return. So something to keep in mind. When it comes to investing, this is the key, is smoothing out that volatility. So what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? Well, approximately 78% of your pre-retirement income, and this is according to Nationwide again, is needed to maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. Now that's a study they did, and this is an average. Again, I like the individual planning part. I don't just, this is a very rough, to me, kind of number to use. What I would rather do is see what you actually need and what it relates. And I find in my practice, what I see is that it's all over the place. I have clients that make a lot of money, but depending on what they spend, they tend to save a lot, and their retirement income relative to their current income, or what they're going to need anyway, is actually quite a bit less than 78%. And then I have others that are going to be needing actually at least as much as their income or their retirement income needs may actually go up, especially for the first 10 to 15 years in retirement over what it is when they're working. So this can be all over, and it's so important to do the planning so that you can see what it is for you. All right, we've got a caller, so we're going to take that. This is Tina. Tina, welcome to the Retirement Report. Oh, I'm sorry, Trina.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have two questions, both very important.
Okay.
If I have an opportunity to ask them. The first one is, what does a person who does not have a pension or does not have the 401k or 403bs, and they're sort of trying to put something together on their own?
Sure.
To investment vehicles, what you suggest? And the second part is, say for someone who wants to put their financial house in order, but they don't really have relatives that they can depend on, what would you suggest in terms of someone or some agency that they could, or maybe a legal practice, I don't know, that they could use as an emergency contact?
So this is for give me that second part of the question again, Trina.
Because part of your planning for the future is also planning to make sure that your finances will be handled in the case of sickness or something.
All right.
So you don't have anybody in particular.
I got you. So if you don't have someone that can help take care of you if you became ill, to help to manage your finances for you in that situation, is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. So one of them, when it comes to a pension, yes, most people do not have pensions. In fact, I think it's only about 18% of the workforce today has pension. Most of those are government workers. Private pensions have gone down considerably. The other part, if you don't have access to a 401k, 403b, 450, any of these different type of company retirement plans, then yes, you can still put money into an IRA, all right? Anyone can do that has earned income. If you're self-employed, you can use a SEP IRA, which will allow you to put even more in. And keep in mind, the purpose of these savings, like all these retirement accounts that I just mentioned, the history on them is not that long. Actually, it was, in the mid-70s, with the passage of ERISA and then a tax revenue plan of 1978, I think it was, that is what created IRAs and 401k. So it wasn't until the 80s that these really started to be used. Before that, people just saved money, right? They just, whether it was in the bank or savings bonds or investments in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, that kind of thing. And for that matter, even mutual funds really didn't take off until the 80s as well. So it's recent history when you think in terms of, as I said, difference between our parents and our grandparents. So when it comes to saving, the first thing is save. You know, spend less than what you make sure you're putting money, even if it's just in a bank account initially, and then start investing, putting that money into, again, I like index type mutual funds or index ETFs. And these are, we use institutional index ETFs and mutual funds in the portfolios that I design for my clients. And what we're looking at there is we want to keep our costs minimal, and we want to make sure that we can capture the type of return that we want. We've got 50 years of Nobel Prize winning academic research that shows us how to construct a portfolio and how to do it in such a way to minimize the volatility while still getting that desired rate of market return that we're seeking. So there are ways to do that. Again, my book, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom, there's a chapter 5, How the Smart Money Invests. And in there I get into portfolio construction as well. And of course I do that with my clients. So that's the first part, is saving, making sure you're living on less, all right, than what you make. So you're putting away money, paying yourself every month. You start out with, of course, the basics of your operating account, an emergency fund, and then your, possibly a short-term fund, and then that long-term investing. The next piece of that, as far as if you don't have anyone that you can count on, depending on your situation, okay, it can differ. Yes, there are companies actually. We set up sometimes for clients. We may have, for instance, a trust set up. They may not have someone that can manage that properly, that they can trust. And so a lot of times we look, of course, for family members, friends, and people that can do it. But when they don't have that, there are companies out there that can provide those kind of services. And it's kind of like, you get again, shopping is important because the expense on those can vary dramatically. But we look at those that are going to give us a reasonable cost, be similar to having a bookkeeping firm in terms of handling the financial parts of it. When it comes to healthcare decisions in that, ideally you'd want to have someone that you can trust in that case, but if not, again, we would go to possibly a trustee that we would be putting in charge there, a corporate trustee. And the goal basically is they're gonna have a fiduciary role, which means they have to act in the best interest of their clients. So they're going to be looking to do the things that are going to benefit them, and they're going to look to structure the same thing with payouts, with paying bills, with whatever it might be, that's done the same way. This is one of the things as well. When it comes to planning, and I've had Russ Cook on a number of times. He's an estate planning attorney and board certified. In fact, estate planning attorney over in Brentwood. And one of the things that we get into when we work with clients and we're putting together estate plans, and I work with other attorneys as well, so the concepts are the same. We sometimes have situations where, if not for themselves, it's maybe they may have a child that they're concerned about that's not going to be able to take care of the finances, all right? They're going to be leaving them money, and they're saying, well, how can I structure this in such a way? And it's the same thing to what Trina was asking, which is having an independent trustee. If they don't have a family member that can take care of that, a corporate trustee, we're able to find the right companies to provide that service and make sure. And I've worked with them, with clients when a client has passed away, and I'm working with that, with the children or the child usually that's not very good with money, or that we can't let them have control of the money, if you will. They have things called special needs trusts. Sometimes it's incapacity, sometimes it's substance abuse, whatever it is, we can put together the plan to make sure they're going to be protected, they're going to be taken care of, and that the money's going to be protected, and make sure it's going to be there to provide for them. So there are ways to do it in planning. All right, we're going to jump back on to, here's something else when you're approaching retirement, something to consider is your expenses. So let's jump back onto that one. One of them, average mortgage debt is $70,000, and the average of $7,700 per year is spent on traveling. Well, this again is going to vary per person. Ideally is to have that house paid for, of course, when you retire. That's going to be your ideal situation, and most of my clients that's the case. Not all though, and so we've then put up a plan of how we're going to incorporate that into their planning, and there are ways that you can accelerate the payoff and save a lot of interest in doing so. The other piece is making sure, in fact, that yes, remember what I said, every day is Saturday. So if you've got the time now and the resources to travel or to do whatever those other things are that you enjoy, that you want to be able to do, we want to make sure that we've planned that into your expenses. So the first piece of that is that we want to see what it costs to make sure that we can, first and foremost, let's maintain that standard of living. We start there. Once we've got that established, then we say, okay, now what if we had an extra $500 a month or $1,000 a month or whatever it might be to accommodate the spending in retirement, the increase that we anticipate, especially for that usually the first 15 years, maybe longer even, in retirement. And we run all that for you to show you these different scenarios and make sure you're going to be able to do those things and not run out of money. And if it doesn't, and if what you're doing currently isn't going to allow you to do it, we show you, of course, strategies to make sure that you can. So what does retirement mean to you? All right, 57% of Americans work or plan to work past age 65. So we're seeing this more and more. In fact, there are more and more articles showing up about this. And it's going to be interesting to see the ripple effects of that, in fact, as we go on and more of the baby boomers reach retirement age, as we're going to see. In fact, I think it's like 70% of them will reach that age in, let's see, starting 2022. So there's a bigger group yet to hit than is hitting right now. And this is one of those areas that planning to work past doesn't mean necessarily, some may continue working in the jobs that they're currently doing. Some may, I've got clients that come in, they retire from the company and yet then come back and act as consultants with the company, you know, working fewer days, 2 or 3 days a week, for instance, and setting their own schedule and being able to still enjoy the life they want. Others do other things. They go out and they find, you know, jobs that they've always wanted to do. Sometimes it's, you know, just volunteer work. The next thing, 54% plan to work at least part-time, and that's more the case of what I see. We'll have those that will work full-time, typically maybe even up to age 70 as an example, but I have many that work work part-time simply because they really enjoy it. I've got some teachers, for instance, that I can think of off the top of my head that are clients, and they just love their job, and they're in their late 70s even and still teaching. Currently 30%, and here's something to keep in mind, by the way. If you look at people like Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger or his partner Charlie Munger, or a Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard Funds, Carl Icahn, another activist investor, you see a lot of people that are very wealthy that are even in, you know, that are in their 80s and beyond, who are continuing to work because they just love what they do and they really enjoy it. I fall into that. I love what I do. I aspire to do as well as that if I'm able to. Hopefully on into my 80s as well, working, doing what I do because I enjoy it so much. All right, currently 30% of 65 to 69-year-olds are employed. So think of that, 30%, 1/3. All right, so what are the main income sources in retirement? And this is going to vary again per person. So some, as we talked about, only about 18% of the workforce has a pension. All right, but for those that do, that's going to be one of your main income sources in retirement. What's one of the big ones? Social Security. All right, and then your deferred, some may have a deferred comp. This depends, you know, these are going to be, or deferred comp can be any kind of plan. It could be a 401k, again, a 403b, 457, thrift savings plans, your TSP. All of these are deferred comp type plans, all right, where you're able to put some money away. Maybe you're getting some matching dollars with that, and you're getting tax deferral. And then again, part-time work again comes in for many as well. So these are some of the main income sources according to the nationwide study. All right, pensions and Social Security may not be enough. And again, as I said, pension plans are only available to about 20% of employees today, and Social Security only accounts for about 40% of what you're going to need to live on. And for some, that it may not even make up that much. Deferred comp plans are becoming the largest income source, and this goes to another very important part, and that is, do you have a tax plan? Because when you start, right, you get the tax deferral, which is great, but now when you start taking that money out, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. Do you have a tax plan, a plan to minimize taxes on your income from those retirement plans when you take it out? That's part of the comprehensive planning that's so important, and I'll talk about that a little bit as soon as we come back from this break, all right? But first, we'll take a quick break. Join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.